Hi and welcome back to Low Carb About. I'm Ludmilla and I'm very excited to share a traditional German recipe with you today. A Christmas Stollen or Weihnachtsstollen. The flavor and aroma of this Stollen is pretty amazing because of the citrus fruit, cinnamon, roasted almonds and extracts that we'll use. And of course we will keep it grain-free, gluten-free and low carb so that you can make it part of your Christmas tradition as well. So let's do some Christmas baking.
We're going to start off by macerating our raisins. For this I'm chopping up a 1/4 cup of raisins and combining it with a 1/4 cup of water and some extracts. I'm using 1½ teaspoons of rum extract and also adding a ½ teaspoon of orange extract. Macerating our raisins in this mixture will make our Stollen moist and aroma rich. To this mixture I'm further adding a 1/4 cup of blanched almond flour. Stir all of the ingredients together and let them macerate for about 30 to 60 minutes. Now traditional Stollen is made with plenty of raisins, but because they are quite high in carbs, I'm only using a 1/4 cup of raisins. And if you rather avoid the sugar and carbs from raisins, you can altogether leave them out. Just make your macerating mixture without the raisins. Now let's make our dough for the Stollen. We will start off by mixing together the wet ingredients. You will need 2 large eggs, ½ cup of Greek yogurt. I prefer the whole or full fat Greek yogurt. You will also need a 1/4 cup of melted butter and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Whisk this mixture together until it looks smooth. So the Christmas Stollen or Weihnachtsstollen is probably one of the most famous German baked goods. During the holiday season, you can find it in just about every supermarket in Germany. Now take a separate bowl to whisk together your dry ingredients. You will need 2½ cups of blanched almond flour, ½ cup of coconut flour, and ½ cup of Swerve confectioners or powdered erythritol. Additionally, I'm adding 4 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of psyllium husk powder. Lastly, I'm adding my spices, a ½ teaspoon of cinnamon, an 8 teaspoon of ground cloves, an 8 teaspoon of allspice, and an 8 teaspoon of cardamom. As you can see, I'm not too concerned about exact measurements here. I'm also adding a dash of salt. Stir your dry ingredients together until they're well combined. While today's Stollen is made with plenty of spices, as you can see, the first Stollen, which was baked about 500 years ago, was actually a pretty tasteless Christmas bread that was made for the fasting season in old Germany. To add some bite to our bread, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of sliced almonds. To give them a bit more crunch and also to release the aroma, I actually roasted them in a pan without grease for a few minutes. I'm also chopping them up before I will add them to the dough. And now we're pretty much ready to combine all our ingredients. Remember our macerated raisins? I'm going to add them to our wet mixture. On top of that, I'm adding a ½ cup of my homemade sugar-free citrus peel to the mixture. If you decide to leave out the raisins, you can actually increase this to 2/3 cups of chopped citrus peel. Lastly, I'm adding my chopped almonds and my dry mixture. And now we have to stir all of this together. So the traditional Weihnachtsstollen is made with candied orange and lemon peel. But because the store-bought versions are so high in sugar, I'm making my own sugar-free citrus peel. But if you don't feel like making your own candied peel, you could instead use the zest from 1 orange and 1 lemon instead. So today my dough feels pretty firm, so I'm actually using my hand to combine it. Sometimes the dough is so wet I can just use a whisk to whisk it up together. I think it depends on the absorbency of my coconut flour that day. Once everything is well combined, let your dough sit for about 5 minutes so the psyllium husk and coconut flour can further absorb some of the liquid. The dough should feel like Play-Doh and only be slightly sticky. If it feels too wet to shape, add more coconut flour, but just 1 tablespoon at a time. Shape the dough on a large piece of parchment paper. Just use your hands to gently press and shape the dough into an oval. You want to keep your lengthwise borders thicker than the middle. Also, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. While you don't need to use exact measurements for the size of your oval, you want it to be about 10 inches long and 8 inches wide. For that characteristic Stollen hump, we're going to fold one side over. I like to mark that line with a wooden spoon. Press the handle of the spoon lengthwise into the dough to make a creased line about 1/3 in. Now, with the help of the parchment paper, fold the other 2/3 side right into the crest. Okay, if the dough breaks a little bit, it's very easy to smooth it out again. As you can see, I'm just using my hands to smooth up any tears that have occurred. I'm also smoothing out any harsh lines that have occurred from the hump and just trying to make it look like a traditional Stollen. There are different ways of folding a Weihnachtsstollen, so if you prefer doing it a different way or if you just want to make it look like a loaf of bread, go ahead. There are no strict rules here. Once you're happy with the shape and look of your Stollen, you can transfer the whole thing with the parchment paper on a large baking sheet. We are nearly ready to bake it, but before we have to brush it with an egg wash. To do this, I'm simply whisking up an egg in a small bowl and then brushing the top of the Stollen all over. Now it's ready to be baked in your preheated oven for 30 minutes. After that, take the Stollen out of the oven, brush it again with the whisked egg, and then bake it for 20 more minutes. The egg wash will help our Stollen from over browning. The total baking time will be between 50 to 55 minutes. Once the Stollen is done baking, it should have a deep brown color. Remove it from the oven once more and brush it with a tablespoon of melted butter while it's still warm. This is a step that's also done in traditional Stollen, and it's followed with a thick dusting of powdered sugar. Of course, we're not going to use sugar. Instead, I'm using swerve sweetener confectioners or powdered erythritol. This traditional glazing with melted butter and powdered sugar helps to keep the Stollen moist and also adds sweetness to that bread that's otherwise not all that sweet compared to cakes. And this is our finished low-carb Christmas Stollen. It really resembles the look of a traditional Weihnachtsstollen. But what's more important, the texture and flavor are really close to the original too. It has all the flavors you're looking for: citrus fruit, cinnamon, roasted almonds, and rum. And just like the original, though it is a heavy bread, it is moist and soft. And we did all that while staying grain-free and gluten-free. This will be such a wonderful addition to your Christmas platter. Serve it with hot tea or with my keto mulled wine. I hope this recipe can bring you some joy. Merry Christmas, my friends!